highest probability of increasing the quality of your marriage and the highest probability of you becoming wealthy.
Yeah.
The one that's better with the money needs to be in control of the money, but they do need to be having meetings, weekly
Yes.
meetings to discuss the finances.
Lowers the probability of wealth building and the quality of the marriage substantially, but it still functions.
But that was a very, very fact-specific situation where they both are very secure and there's no imbalance. If one person has a plenty and one person has lack, that's a big problem.
Right.
Because that's slavery.
A lot of people think that divorce happens because of infidelity, but divorce happens a lot of times because of finances.
Oh,
It's
finances is
number
more
one.
of a cause. That's the
Yes.
number one cause for divorce. Before you get married is the time to find that out. Don't be so desperate to get married and so lonely or insecure that you have to get married and you're willing to sacrifice. The biggest husband and wife money fights. You ready for this one?
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go.
I'm in a little bit of a predicament. I'm coming to the realization that I'm having to possibly make some decisions that are not only finance related.
I'm having
but
trouble
also-
understanding you. Can you speak directly into your phone, please? Sounds muffled.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, a little better.
Yeah.
It's just you
I
and
can't
me
talk
and
too
Dave and like
loudly.
10 million other people. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. I can't speak too loudly because my husband's downstairs and I don't want to be interrupted by him.
Did we do this one?
Yes.
I don't want to be interrupted by him.
Okay. There's a lot of different ways that husbands and wives interact over money. There's a situation where they work together and everything's combined.
That's good.
And they make decisions together.
That's
And
good.
when they make decisions on their spending
That's
and
good.
their investing, they realize that they are truly adding a level of unity, a level of oneness to their relationship, a level of communication to their relationship, and that's plan A.
Correct.
And it has the highest
there's plan B.
probability of increasing the quality of your marriage and the highest probability of you becoming wealthy.
Absolutely.
I can tell you plan B already.
Without a doubt. What do you think plan B is? They run their finances separately?
They run their
Yeah.
finances separate. They have 2 different bank accounts.
Yeah.
They don't talk about money.
Or they don't combine anything.
No. His money's his,
Yeah.
her money's hers.
The only
or
time-
if they're like married and the husband has like he's the primary breadwinner and she's staying at home, then he's very domineering about money. He only gives her a certain amount each month. She is held kind of hostage.
That's one
and
version
he
of it
throws
too.
it into her face.
That's a bad version of it. Another version
Yes.
is he or one of the two earns all the money and the other one manages the money. That's not good either.
No. Well, let's just say this. You go to Financial Peace University. You identify one spouse is better with money than the other.
Yeah.
The one that's better with the money needs to be in control of the money, but they do need to be having meetings, weekly
Yes.
meetings to discuss the finances.
We had one that I talked to recently where
Where the
the husband was
would
earning it
not.
all and wouldn't talk about the money, and the wife was trying to manage all the money. But
And
then
they
the
went
husband,
to
the husband
Financial
would then,
Peace.
and they did go to Financial Peace University, but the husband wasn't into it, and it was creating problems. You both
Right.
really need to be all in because you can't abdicate your responsibility with y'all's money to the other person. You just cannot, and you should not, and it's very dangerous when you do.
Right.
Plan A does. Plan B is to healthy, mentally mature, emotionally mature people who operate financially like roommates, but both of them have a vote, and there is a mutual respect, and there's communication between them, but they run separate accounts. That's a plan B. That lowers the probability of wealth building and the quality of the marriage substantially, but it still functions.
Yeah, because we had one with an estate plan where it's a second marriage. They both have about $1.5 million worth of net assets, and they're going to run their stuff separately. They're older people, and they're going to both contribute an equal amount to a joint account that they actually do for all their living expenses. So he's managing a certain amount of money. She's managing a certain amount of money. They're doing it almost as a diversification strategy of, if I'm good with money, I'm pretty good, and I may or may not do well. You got money, you do pretty well with money, and you may or may not do pretty well. But then it balances out. But there's that community where they're living in the middle, and that's what they pay for, all their living expenses, all of their vacations, all of their food, travel, bills, utilities, everything that they really need, and they're going to be in complete agreement about those things. That's, I think, the best
Yeah.
level of hybrid.
That
and
I can
that's an
kinda see.
okay type
Yeah.
of scenario. So, and they're not really in any kind of building wealth necessarily phase because they also both have retirement money that's coming in.
Right.
And so it's more the legacy for their separate kids and family and things, and that will take care of each other in the death of the first one. So as an estate planning project, that I actually thought was fine.
Right.
But that was a very, very fact-specific situation where they both are very secure and there's no imbalance. If one person has a plenty and one person has lack, that's a big problem.
Right.
Because that's slavery.
Yes.
And it's not going to work out right.
Plan C, that's even worse, is mom or dad, husband or wife, one of the two, is in charge.
Yep. Exactly.
We just talked about that.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the other one is
It's almost like Dave Ramsey knows what he's talking about.
doled out money as an allowance. Well, I got to
Yeah.
check with mama, see if I got any money.
Yeah. it's like
Meaning
that.
the wife is in charge of the money. Or
Yeah.
I got to ask my husband because he handles all the money.
Now, okay, if you're
And you
trying to
know
get out
what?
of buying something and you're being polite with a salesperson, and you're like, well, I got to check with them, or
Yeah.
they're being super mega pushy, or you're dealing
Yeah.
with a timeshare people or something, yeah, blame it on the other spouse.
Yeah.
But you can't really actually be thinking that.
But it drives me nuts when people don't know their finances.
Oh, I
like
know.
you ask them a
Oh, I
question
know.
like,
it's a problem. It's bad.
like, how much credit card debt do you have? Oh, I don't know. I don't look at that. I don't have access to that. What do you mean you don't have access to it? Is your name
When
on one
have
of
you
the credit
grown up?
cards?
Because and you do
Yeah.
not want to be your spouse's child.
No.
They will not respect you. You don't
No.
respect you. It's a messed up dynamic. Please be an adult.
I don't know what we've got. And they die, the one that handles the money dies, and the other one just left clueless
Yeah.
and with no
Yes.
skills because
Yep.
they don't have decades of handling anything.
Yep.
They basically are a glorified child.
Have you watched this before?
No.
I haven't either. It's almost like we all know what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. It's probably good advice.
Taken care of by an unglorified parent in that
Yep.
setting, and that is damaging to the relationship, and it's really
Yep.
damaging to the money.
Yep.
Really damaging the money.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That plan F, where you fail the test, is one toxic member of the team is in control of the money and the other person
Yep.
It's finance. That's abuse.
with
Right.
toxic
Exactly.
financial
Yep.
abuse.
Right.
Exactly.
The extreme of that is there's a high correlation in the data and in the actual practice, and I've seen it on the financial side. I've talked with other coaches. You and I have talked about this. You probably can cite a study. I've just talked to other people that have seen it in practice, that if a husband has extreme control over the finances,
That's what you mentioned.
to the point that the wife is not allowed to can't go to the grocery store by herself, can't pay any electric bill. She's given $2 at a time.
By the way, I've seen this reverse genders too.
Oh, yeah.
It happens as much.
$2,000 at a time.
It's whoever's in charge, whoever makes the most money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It could be the husband or it could be the wife. And nowadays,
Yep.
sometimes the woman makes more money than the husband. So,
That's
yeah,
true.
there's a control issue there.
Extreme control, probably 90 to 95% of the time he's hitting her.
Probably. I don't know
Trying
if
to-
it's that level.
Dominant. No, I
don't think it's 90 to 95.
I don't think it's
50% wouldn't surprise me, but it's an issue.
Yeah. I don't think it's all cases, though. I think there are where the husband or the wife wants the other one to be subservient to them.
Yeah.
And this is how they do it.
Yep.
Domestic violence tied to that. If there's that level,
Now I will say this. So I think he maybe has it backwards. A high percentage of domestic violence cases have that factor. If you have that factor, your percentage of having domestic violence is not as high. So the domestic violence cases, that's a really strong factor. Switching causation there, maybe. But he's not inherently wrong. He may be a little bit wrong about the magnitude of it, but he's
Well,
not inherently wrong about
this
that.
is
That's an
what-
accurate problem that he's describing.
Well, this is what people don't realize when they have an abuser. The abuser is not confident. They're trying to imprison you for a reason.
Absolutely.
And so the way to imprison you is not only by abusing you, but it's also
Any kind of
like
manipulation.
handicapping you where you can't escape.
I will tell you that if it was 90 to 95% of those people are actual narcissists that are trying to do that, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Right.
That is the MO of a narcissist.
of control, you can just about count on it. That last one gets really close to that.
That's why my first question was, are you safe, right? Because
Yeah,
you
but
can feel it.
she wanted to say safe was emotional abuse, but she's upstairs and can't speak
Yeah.
loudly
Correct.
because he's downstairs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
makes me wonder about that whole thing.
And how many calls have we taken, you and I have taken, that have a couple on, they disagree, they're either laughing about it or they're in jest but serious, That's the first one of these where somebody's hiding upstairs saying,
Yep.
Yeah, it's not the first one, sadly, but it won't be the last one. But the point of us bringing this up is, I mean, to outline what A plan is, B plan is, C plan is, and F plan is. Here's the thing. Every one of those, regardless of who you are and which player you are in that role, is a choice to go forward that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're in that any abuse, please
C or F, you need to
make a choice.
Yeah.
And you've got to leave that situation.
And I don't think people realize, a lot of people think that divorce happens because of infidelity, but divorce happens a lot of times because of finances.
Oh,
It's
finances is
number
more of a
one.
cause. That's the
Yes.
number one cause for divorce. Absolutely.
Yep. Do you ever fight about finances, Summer?
Yes.
See, me and Daniel never fight over finance. Maybe because you own a business and there's a lot more stress to it.
There is.
It's a different level of
There is.
stress, which I
And,
can understand
I mean,
that.
because we have, 20 families that depend on every little decision that I make, and we make a lot of these decisions together. I can overrule virtually every single decision in my life about everything. I'm the ultimate owner of the businesses, and I don't take that responsibility lightly, and I
Right.
don't make decisions that are foolish and necessarily override decisions. I'm going to do my absolute best to default to the people that are around me that are advising me.
But if we
as
pull
much
the
as I can.
businesses out of it and just your personal finances, do y'all fight finances?
When we first got married, our first year of marriage, that is 90% marriage difficult because she didn't understand the level that I operated at business at. We weren't at the same level. She was in a mode of, I've just been living with my aunt so that I can pay my debts off. And I was in a building type of mode. I was not averse to debt at the time, which
Right.
was bad. And I was spending money on entrepreneurial
But you have
endeavors that
to.
were issued. But like, for example, we had 2 restaurants that were going on at that time. One that several friends were heavily invested in, upwards of 6 figures. Then there was another business that was a multi-million-dollar business that thankfully I only had time invested in and no actual money in. But the financial housing crash of 2008 happened right in the middle of those 2 projects
Yeah.
and destroyed one of them entirely, and the other one lasted about 6 more months. I personally went in to try and run it, and she hated the fact that I was in there trying to run a restaurant and bar, and by a certain time of the day, it was only a bar.
Right.
And she had just recently, within the past year or 2, come out of Celebrate Recovery and things for having issues with substance abuse of alcohol. And she didn't want me going there. I was spending a bunch of time there and away from her, and we had a lot of different problems, and a lot of it came down to money of, what do you want me to do? Just walk away from this and, lose
Right.
6 figures? And the answer to that actually was yes. And I did walk away from that for her, but it made things very difficult, and it broke trust with her and almost completely destroyed our marriage. Thankfully, through very wise decisions and very difficult decisions, I made difficult choices for the sake of the marriage in order to save the relationship. And we worked through a lot of different things. We were also living in an apartment that I was using in a place that was mixed commercial and residential. And so I was using this apartment as the law firm office, and we were basically, it wasn't that we were working from home, it was that we were living in a law firm office.
Right. I've heard you describe it.
Kind of like, like a nice version of Better Call Saul. I wasn't living in the back of a nail salon,
Right.
but it was nothing that I would tolerate now
Right.
at this point, right? And we decided, okay, we're going to rent office space and have a separate place for where we live. And we then moved into a 1-bedroom, this tiny apartment, the same place that she had lived years earlier. So even in that, it felt to her like a lot of steps backwards in progress, and was requiring her to have a lot of faith in me without a lot of proof or evidence in a lot of things. Some things there was, and I was like, you just got to wait and believe me, and we'll get there. And then other things that not so much. And we also went through a major crisis, a financial crisis, really, I basically committed malpractice the week that we got married. I missed some deadlines on admissions, which now I know how to fix and undo that. It wouldn't even be an issue. But at the time, I didn't. And it had led to a series of problems. And basically, I bought my way out of that problem for $15,000.
Oh, wow.
I bought both sides out of the case, kind of
Right.
I basically gave some money to our client. I got the thing done and learned a lot from that. But she's seeing me do that. I had to sell a car in order to come up with the $15,000.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I made her quit her job.
I need you to be my paralegal.
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice.
I mean, it wasn't you have to quit, but it might have been you have to quit. Like, you really, come on, please quit. You're the person I love the most. Let's work together. It was a really bad idea to do all that. We've been through all those learning lessons.
Right.
And we have learned how to work together, how to not me be the boss and her be subservient to that.
But you've taken a lot of courses in order to do this, and you had to have a lot of mentors help you through this process, which probably saved your marriage through the course of it.
Absolutely.
Because
it's what saved my marriage.
No marriage is strong enough to really go through something like that. And that's a big season to go through.
My first coach told me, if you don't get into this program, you will get a divorce.
Yeah.
And I agreed. I said, yes, you're right. So here, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And it cost me $1,000 or $1,200 a month to do that. Maybe it was $750 at the time, and then went up more over time. But I didn't even know where that $1,000 was going to come from. I knew that I had it right there. Okay, I'm going to spend it. I can't believe it, because that's the only $1,000 that we had, type of thing. And it worked.
It just takes a mustard seed of faith.
Yes. And thankfully she had that, and then I had that. It must have been more difficult for her.
So as you can see, even Mr. Palmer's gone through this kind of stuff. I think we all have in our marriage at some course of time. We've had issues with finances.
Yeah.
So
money is going to come up.
Have honest communications about money.
And they won't
put it out.
They're afraid to talk about money with their spouse, or they're afraid to talk about money with their fiance. If you haven't talked about money with your fiance, by the time you actually get married, you'll realize, oh, now that we're actually operating, that we didn't even think to talk about. I am a very big proponent of those before you say I do premarital classes, because it goes through these things that it's really important that you have conversations about prior to you getting married.
Right.
It's very, very important, because your first year of marriage is going to be extremely difficult, because you've got a set of expectations, they have a set of expectations, and they do not match, but you think that they do. You're going to be convinced that y'all are exactly on the same page, and you're going to find out, oh, we're not on the same page about these couple of things, and it's a major problem.
Right.
So before you get married is the time to find that out. Don't be so desperate to get married and so lonely or insecure that you have to get married and you're willing to sacrifice very important things, like what's your relationship going to be like with your parents and your in-laws? What's your relationship going to be like with your children, and do you want to have children? Are y'all both okay with that? Or is one of you thinking, I'll convince them to change, and then they're thinking they'll convince you to change?
Right.
That's not going to work. Very importantly, you got to have the conversation about money, and you got to have the conversation about religion. If you're a Satan worshiper and they're a Christian, it's not going to work. And vice versa.
Yeah. If you're two different religions, like one of you is Jewish and the other one's Christian.
Jewish and Christian are probably your best, closest bet.
Right. But one of them's got to convert to one.
Christian and Muslim, I've seen that work in one marriage that I know of, and it's a good marriage. It's a difficulty.
Right.
And it's also a lack of connection that you're going to have in an aspect of life that might be incredibly important, and it depends on how important that is to you.
Right.
Those are the qualifications. And remember, when you are looking for a person to be married to, it's not about finding someone that will accept you. Right. Please don't approach it from that low self-esteem point. It is about screening out everyone who is bad for you and then choosing your favorite from who is left over. And if you have enough self-esteem to realize, I am screening out people, you will actually be the catch.
Right.
You won't have to worry about trying to attract them. That naturally will be attractive to someone. And have patience and have self-confidence. If you're super insecure and hoping that you can get that person over there, you'll never get them.
Right.
But if you are not worried about it, simply engage in conversation with them and try and find out things about them, you actually might find, oh, they're definitely not the right one for me anyway.
Right.
The whole purpose, if you approach it of how and why can I screen this person out, and they're not for me, but I'm going to get to interact and talk with them a little bit, you become the higher lobster, really.
Exactly.
Because you're going to find the right person for you at a certain point. You've got to have self-esteem and self-control. And if you approach it from that way, you'll have the easiest time. It's a much easier time. Because if not, for any time that you don't have someone, you're going to be self-conscious and insecure. And that's going to prevent you from getting anybody.
Don't be like Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride. You ever seen that movie?
Nope. All right.
So
For the benefit of me and the
so
audience.
she runs away every time she goes to get married. She gets engaged. She's been engaged to all these different men. And every guy she gets engaged to, whatever they like, she likes.
Wow.
So if one's into sports, she becomes like this big sports fanatic.
Yeah.
And
Don't do that.
And then she ends up like, it's kind of funny because Richard Gere's in it, and she ends up falling in love with Richard Gere, like in Pretty Woman. Anyway, but then she separates herself from him because she realizes she doesn't know who she is.
Clearly. Exactly.
So she doesn't even know how she really likes her ex, because forever she says that however that person likes it. So she literally goes through all these steps of like, how do I like my ex? So she scrambles them, she hardballs them, she does all these different things and decides, okay, I like it this way. Then she goes to the next thing because she's realized that's why she continues to run away, is because she doesn't know who she is.
Exactly.
So know who you are and keep watching us on the Lawyer Dana podcast.